Recently, signs of severe damage have been appearing in the village's fields. Rows of corn have been uprooted, the soil has been plowed into deep furrows, and in many places, only the bare roots remain. The villagers reported when the wild boars appeared, where they were headed, and the areas they often attacked. We gathered early in the morning to plan. We would split into several ambush points and follow the exact trails the boars have been using throughout the week. The guns were carefully checked from the scopes and muzzle to each individual bullet. No words were spoken, but everyone understood that today's mission wasn't just about taking a shot. It was about ending a month-long reign of destruction, protecting the crops, and ensuring the safety of the village's livelihood. The first area we approached was the edge of the largest cornfield in the region. Dozens of fresh wild boar tracks were clearly visible, leading from the embankment down into the field and looping back along their usual path. This was a clear sign they would return within the day. I chose a low position behind a dirt mound, propped my rifle on a sandbag to steady the barrel. Not long after, a large boar stepped out. It walked down the same path it had destroyed the previous day, completely unaware. When the boar stopped to inspect the broken corn stalks, I could feel the tension in the moment. I squeezed the trigger. This was not just a hunt, but a convergence of man and nature, instinct and skill. Every hunt reminds me that victory is not just about the kill, it's about the process, patience, observation, and respect for the wild creatures we pursue. We moved up to a higher hill to observe an open patch of land between two fields. Through the binoculars, we could see a group of wild boars moving along the familiar trail, rooting up small patches of earth as they went. The lead boar stepped out first, large, strong, and purposeful. Aiming for its shoulder, I held my breath for that final moment and pulled the trigger. It dropped instantly, and the rest of the herd turned and fled out of the crop fields, exactly as we had planned. Success lies in the hunter's composure and timing. In nature, every action has a reason. Just like a shot, it's not always about pulling the trigger, it's about knowing when the time is right and when the target is clear. By midday, we shifted our focus to a well-worn trail cutting through a patch of reeds. The signs of frequent passage were clear. This was a main route for the wild boars. A lone boar appeared, moving slowly, stopping every few steps to sniff the wind. I followed its shoulder movement through the sights, held steady, and fired. The boar collapsed immediately on the trail, unable to make it any further toward the rice paddies ahead. Out in the west of the field, there was an open stretch of land where the wild boar tracks were especially numerous. A boar suddenly dashed out, running diagonally across the field. I tracked its movement, but when it changed direction to the right, my first shot missed. The bullet hit the ground, and the boar bolted toward the neighboring cornfield. A missed shot, a clear reminder that any rush can cost you the opportunity. I followed its trail, focusing on regaining my composure after the miss. Before long, another boar appeared from the opposite side. It moved cautiously, taking short steps. As it entered my sight line, I squeezed the trigger with steady confidence. The bullet found its mark. The field fell silent again, just as it had been. In between the rows of crops, the freshly disturbed earth remained visible. As I was observing, the sound of barking dogs grew closer. Sure enough, a fat wild boar was trapped, surrounded by the hunting dogs as it sought an escape. With a sudden, sharp instinct, I fired. The shot echoed clearly. The boar collapsed right there in the row of crops. The dogs quickly closed in to finish the job, returning the peaceful quiet of the cornfield to the villagers, whose harvest would remain undisturbed. The remaining boars scattered in panic. As the day seemed to draw to a close, with the sunlight fading, another lone boar appeared in the second ambush area. We remained perfectly still, careful not to make a sound. I narrowed the sights and adjusted for its head movements. I found the perfect angle for the quickest, cleanest kill. I squeezed the trigger. The shot was crisp and precise, and the boar fell in place, not causing any more damage to the crops. Peace was restored to the field, and the villagers would rest easy tonight, free from worry during this harvest season. The entire village would be safe and well-fed. As the truck left the field, its bed full of our haul, everyone knew today had been hard work, but it was worth it. Each shot meant less damage to the crops and more security for the villagers. We'll keep monitoring the trails, protecting the fields, because just one night of wild boars returning could wipe out all the efforts of the season. Follow along for tomorrow's journey.
Oradan bir tekrarlayıp daha geliyor.
The early sunlight quietly touched the faded stone rooftops of Alberobello village. Dew still lingered on the grass. We left the village, rifles at the ready, walking slowly past the rosemary bushes along the path. Last night, wild boars had once again torn apart a field of young corn at the forest's edge. No one in the village slept in peace. Each harvest season here was a struggle, and we could no longer stand by watching them wreak havoc. Inside the forest, the wind blew gently. Click! The rifles were unlocked. The hunt had begun for the fields and for the peaceful sleep of the entire village. Come along with us on this journey. We followed the winding hoof prints from the last cornfield all the way to the forest's edge. The sun was just rising, golden light stretching across the damp, cold air. The silence was so deep that even the crunch of our boots on dry earth echoed. Sensing boars ahead in the thick grass, John said nothing. He straightened, raised his rifle, an instinct he had mastered long ago. The scope locked on. Breath held, trigger squeezed. A clean, decisive shot from a seasoned hunter. The beast stumbled, rolled once, and lay still. We advanced quietly, following a familiar path to the old watchtower we had built on a previous trip. Everything remained intact, enough for the group to settle without making a sound. We waited in silence, watching. As predicted by one of our most experienced hunters, a herd of wild boars emerged from the bushes. A shot rang out from John's rifle. The bullet cut through the air, striking the alpha boar dead on, ending its destruction in an instant. The herd panicked, scattering into the deep woods. From experience, hunters know boars usually hide deep in thick bushes, but once driven out by hounds, they have no choice but to appear. John and I set up at an old trail heavy with signs, ready for action. It didn't take long before a boar poked its snout out of the brush, mud still clinging to its legs. I fired immediately. The bullet struck its shoulder, bringing it down. Target secured. The group rested after a long chase through the dense forest. Tracks led us into the dry woods. Harsh sunlight, brittle fallen leaves everywhere. Every step echoed with a sharp crunch. I gripped my rifle tightly, ears straining. Another herd seemed to be nearby. The bushes trembled, then a boar charged straight at us. John didn't flinch. He chambered around, squeezed the trigger. The bullet flew through the air and struck true. A perfect shot. Breathtaking, wasn't it? At the same moment, Jack on the opposite side was locked onto another target. He calculated distance, speed, and angle, then fired. The threat was gone, and the harvest secured. Only a veteran hunter with such experience could execute shots that clean. From a distance, we spotted a lone boar wandering across the dry leaves, unaware of us. I steadied my rifle, eyes fixed through the scope. My breath slowed, finger tightened. The bullet sliced through the air, dropping the intruder instantly. As dusk fell, we decided to head home after an exhausting day. Suddenly, a boar burst out from the field. Without hesitation, we fired. Quick reflexes, deadly accuracy, not a single miss. A cold, flawless execution worthy of true hunters. And with that, another tense and dangerous hunt came to an end. After the harvest, cornfields are littered with kernels dropped by the combine harvester. For wild boars, it's a feast. They come to gorge themselves on these leftovers, a precious source of fat for the winter. And that's also the golden opportunity for hunters to strike. But will the hunt go as planned? Let's find out together. The plan had been carefully discussed, positions assigned with precision. Dressed in hunting gear, boots laced tight, rifles double-checked, we together with our most elite hunting dogs were ready. At dawn, the chilly air was so still we could hear the wind whispering through dry stalks. As planned, we used the harvester's engine noise to flush the boars out from their hiding place. And then they came. An entire herd burst out like a raging flood. Holding our breath, we focused on the racing shadows, pulling the trigger in rapid succession. The alpha boar was hit and went down. The hunting dogs, like arrows loosed from a bow, immediately rushed in and locked down the target. We hurried to the nearby grassland where the massive boar was cornered by the dogs. The tension was razor sharp. I carefully aimed, making sure not to endanger our four-legged allies. Boom! The beast collapsed, ending its struggle. The dogs were released again as we strained to catch the faintest sound. The tension was chilling. Even the rustle of a single dry leaf made us flinch. And there they were. Two intruders, flushed out by the dogs, ran straight into my sights. Two quick, precise shots rang out. One boar went down, but still had enough strength to dash into the corn for cover. The team chased it relentlessly, pushing the beast into the open with the dogs. As the fat boar burst out of the cornfield, I intercepted it. Boom! Another hit. But it still sprinted desperately for survival. I knew it couldn't run far. Following quietly, I found it collapsed in a thick patch of grass. Another threat eliminated, peace restored, at least for now. By noon, the sun blazed down, sweat soaking through our hunting gear. After a short rest, we decided to expand into the nearby dry grasslands. This time, we used a pincer tactic, one group driving, the other, including me, ambushing key trails. It didn't take long. From a distance, the herd came stampeding toward the path I was guarding. I fired quickly. One large boar dropped instantly while the rest scattered. With no way out, they barreled straight into the ambush where James and Finn were waiting. I alerted them via radio. Just as planned, the ones heading toward James and Finn were swiftly neutralized. But the real challenge came from the last two in the herd. As they bolted onto the trail, we aimed and unleashed a deafening volley. But the cunning beasts managed to slip into the grasslands and escape. Still, with our teammates tightening the encirclement, their fate was sealed. Suddenly, furious barking erupted from a nearby thicket. My heart pounded again. Gripping my rifle, I kept my eyes locked on the spot, knowing the enemy could charge at any moment. And it did. A massive boar exploded from the brush, charging straight at me in rage. In that split second, hesitation had no place. I pulled the trigger. The beast collapsed at my feet. Its final charge ended forever, closing a dramatic day of hunting. Cold sweat ran down my back as I exhaled 1 second slower, and I don't dare imagine the outcome. The return was exhausting, yet every heart was filled with pride and relief. It was a successful hunt, not just in trophies, but in safeguarding the farmland's peace. Nightfall draped the land, campfire flames flickering against the determined faces of our team. At dawn, we would set out. This wild hog hunt was more than just seasonal, it was a vow. Just the day before, the lead boar had raided the village, taking the life of Brian's loyal hunting dog, a battle-hardened companion. A dark omen. If we hesitated or showed mercy, our village and fields would be ravaged. We, the young hunters, chose to rise, not only to protect our home, but to seek justice and honor the bravery of our four-legged friend who gave everything. The fierce battle was about to begin. Our team moved into the tangerine grove, where the sweet scent of ripe fruit mingled with the cool, damp air, creating the perfect trap. We had reports that a large group of wild boars was gathered here. My heart pounded as a familiar rustling broke the silence. It wasn't the wind, it was purposeful, powerful movement. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, then quietly followed the rows of tangerines. Suddenly, a massive shadow burst into view. Without hesitation, I squeezed the trigger. Bang! The shot shattered the stillness. The beast skidded across the ground before collapsing. A perfect first shot, a strong start to today's hunt. Soon after, the hunting dogs were released, tearing through the orchard, while our team set up an ambush along the trail. Everyone was hopeful for a big haul. Our weapons were state-of-the-art, after all. Then, suddenly dozens of massive dark shapes burst out from thick bushes, charging across the path. It all happened in a blur. Our hunting team panicked, guns raised, and firing relentlessly at the boar herd. Shots rang out in rapid succession. We gave it everything we had, but not a single one went down. They were too fast, splitting up and scattering in all directions. The hunt had entered a new, far tougher chapter. Refusing to give up, Kevin headed east, Jack moved west, while James and I took the south and north. The team quickly spread out, fueled by determination for revenge. Plan B quickly kicked in. To the east, Kevin intercepted the lead boar as it charged toward the road, desperate to escape danger. But Kevin was waiting there, calm and focused. He locked onto his target, steadied his aim, and took it down with a perfectly placed shot. Meanwhile, near where we had parked and stored today's trophies, Jack heard hurried footsteps. Instantly, he took his position. The boar charged like a bullet. Jack squeezed the trigger decisively. The target dropped right in the middle of the path. What do you think of this shot? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Meanwhile, on our side, James and I continued tracking the herd's trail. We were certain they would pass through here on their escape route. Stay patient, I told James. This time, we were determined not to fail. We waited in ambush, ready as heavy footsteps grew louder. The herd appeared. Dark shapes surged forward, their numbers overwhelming us. Both barrels fired simultaneously, and the lead boar dropped instantly. We stayed calm, pushing to take down as many as possible. The second shot rang out. James squeezed the trigger, quickly bringing down the next target. We had avenged and restored justice for our fallen four-legged friend. This was today's final target, claimed by Kevin. Meanwhile, our pack of hunting dogs was hot on the trail of a wild boar. The sharp barking signaled the target was closing in. The boar burst out from the bushes like a bullet, desperate to escape the chase. Kevin fired, but the boar kept running. Two quick, precise shots rang out. He took the animal down. It slammed hard onto the fields, sliding across the dirt. Kevin shouted in triumph, "Bravo!" That shot sealed the deal, wrapping up an outstanding day of hunting for the whole team. After the fierce battle, the gunfire fell silent, leaving only the quiet calm of the orchard. The ruthless lead boar lay defeated. The fight was over. We had avenged Brian, the villagers, and our brave four-legged friend. Looking at the tangerines still hanging on the branches, we knew peace had returned. From now on, the village could rest a little easier. The war with the wild boars is far from over. Don't forget to hit follow and join us for more thrilling hunting adventures ahead. On the sun-scorched grasslands, where the wind whirls up layers of red dust along dirt roads, local villagers are struggling against the destruction brought by herds of wild boars. They storm into farms, plowing through crops in a single night, leaving behind nothing but ruin. That's why today we set out off-road vehicles and rifles ready for a life-and-death confrontation. What kind of fierce encounters will this unforgiving wilderness throw at us? Let's find out in the journey ahead. Still seated in the truck, we suddenly spotted a reckless target dashing across the field ahead. Within mere seconds, the shot rang out. The beast collapsed instantly. Too fast, too dangerous. An explosive start, foreshadowing that today's hunt would be anything but simple. We decided to get off the vehicle, moving silently so as not to startle any boars still hiding nearby. But as soon as I stepped into position, a massive black figure suddenly charged straight toward me as if to attack. There was no time to hesitate. My fingers squeezed the trigger. The bullet tore through the air, striking the beast's body. It staggered, thrashed, and finally lay still. We wasted no time and pressed on, following every trace of the crop-raiding beasts. Suddenly, the team leader ahead raised his hand, silence. Before him stood a massive wild boar, its eyes glinting with a defiant challenge. He advanced slowly, fearless. When the distance was reduced to just a few steps, he raised his rifle and ended it cleanly. That's the fate of those who dare to stand defiant before the cold barrel of a hunter's gun. After dealing with that target, we received a signal from the southeast. Boar spotted. The whole team rushed over. Since the distance was great, one member quickly took out his scoped rifle, carefully locking on. The boar, busy foraging, had no idea it was already in the crosshairs. Bang! The shot cracked loudly, the bullet piercing its mark. The beast collapsed instantly, never even getting a chance to flee. From another direction, a teammate suddenly shouted. I spun around instinctively, rifle raised,